So this is my lecture on the PowerPoint lecture on formal reports, and this is my favorite figure in the book, figure 10.10, how to write a formal report. And the reason that this is important is that when you do your capstone, this is going to be the format that I want you to do it in. And there are a lot of good formats that are shown all around the book, and there are a lot of really good examples. I really like this one, and I think it really gives you a good start. You know, for those of you who can, some people have the ability to just look at something and kind of ape it, or just copy the elements of it. They can look at this, and they can see that you've got right up here, you've got a bold-faced, slightly larger font title, and then down here, this is who it's prepared for, who it's prepared by, and the date, which is obviously important, because if you're keeping these things and you're looking something's done in 2018, 2017, you know, you might want to update it before you move forward on it. This is a restaurant that is, or hypothetical restaurant, that is operating in the Denver area, and thinking about, they've got four traditional dining restaurants, and they're thinking about trying to find something else, a different market. And they're thinking about locally sourced food and fast casual format. So this is the report that they did, and take a look right here. So here's the title page on the left, and then over the front on the other side right here, they've got the contents. The contents. Seems to be a concept that most students get pretty easily. You've been looking at tables of contents since you were young. As you can see at the very bottom here, we're going to talk about the appendix items, but we'll talk about that later on. And right now we're just going to look at this report and follow it to the appendix. So as we said, you start out with a cover page, then you go to a content page, and then on the third page you have this. And this gives students a lot of trouble. This is the executive summary. Now, the executive summary is not the introduction. That's the most important thing that you can think about when you write your executive summary, is it's not your introduction. Now, what a lot of people do is they write the executive summary last, because that way they can look at the entire report, they can pick out the important parts, and they can write it in the executive summary. The executive summary is basically a shorter version of the entire report. It condenses it. It includes all the important findings, the conclusions, the recommendations. And take a look at the formatting, because this formatting is very, very typical of a business report. You see executive summary up top. You see the white space underneath. You see that all of the paragraphs and the bullet points are used, and there's the bold face for the words like competition, sourcing, cost, and seasonality, because you're getting into different topics. You see that we teach you double space, double space, double space all through high school and college, and then you get to the business area and we say, no, never mind that. We want single space, and then we want you to leave air in between. We want you to leave a space in between paragraphs. So this is on display, and we can take a look at it right there, and you'll see it throughout the rest of this report. So this is the executive summary. This tells you basically what you're about to read, but it's not just introducing it to you. But it's not telling you what you're going to read. It's telling you it explains everything to you. It can stand on its own. And oftentimes it does, because there are some people who only read executive summaries. This is consistent for a business, any kind of a business report. If you've got a lot of eyes reading it, there's a good chance everybody's reading it for something different, and they're all reading it in a different way. And they're designed that you can kind of pick it up and go to your area that you care about and read that area, or you can just kind of look at the executive summary and kind of know the overall, and you're good with that. Here's the introduction. Now, the introduction does a couple of things. It gives the context for the report. It describes the reason for the research, and it talks about the questions the report is addressing. You know, in this case, we're talking about what the appeal might be if this type of restaurant comes in, and other key questions that we're going to get to in just a second. So the first paragraph kind of gives the context, describes the reason for the research, so to speak. The second paragraph summarizes the most important findings. Now you'll see, one of the things you'll see if you take a look right here, you'll see, look what they've got. They've got sources, and they footnote the sources. So be aware that just like in an academic report, you've got to footnote your sources. The style they use in business is APA, which is the American Psychology Association. Why they picked that, I don't know, but that is the style that they go by. As you can see, it's very, very similar to MLA, which you're familiar with, but you do want to kind of familiarize yourself with APA style. So, a couple of other things they do here. So, right here they set it up, the context and the reasons and the things they'll be studying, the questions they're going to look at. And then right here, they summarize the most important findings and the most important recommendations. And then here, in the third paragraph, they talk about the organization of the content. In this case, you see, number one, they use the bullet point, why a fast casual restaurant will appeal to the Denver market. And look what comes along right here, just a couple lines down, why a fast casual restaurant will appeal to the Denver market, as a subhead to get into this section here, which is about why a fast casual restaurant will appeal to the Denver market. The next page, take a look, and the next page after that, really, really well done, nice graphics here, good elements, good visual elements. And again, somebody might look at this, they flip this, all they're going to really be looking at is going to be this headline, and then maybe they're going to go right down here and take a look at what's going on for those people who are location. Captions to figures and tables, as we see right there. These are the people who are eating organic foods by location. So it's a really good visual element to have, and it basically supports the section. Here you see more of the same. You see a good-looking graphic to the left. You see bullet points on the right. You see sourcing. You see paragraph, bullet point, bullet point. Every so often I'll get a report and it'll just be bullet points, which just drives me a little bit crazy. I don't want to read a list. I want them to be worked into the text skillfully so that it helps to make sense, and it helps to make for easy reading for somebody who is basically reading quickly and really looking for really specific parts of pieces of content, and is also looking for logical, reasonable thought. Again, more of the same. So these are the different subsections. You see this, the sections are divided. You get these nice subsections that kind of explain each element of the report. Now, we don't have this in this report, and often with a short report, there's no conclusion. I would like you to include a conclusion right here when you do your reports, simply because we're working on it. We're working on the skill. So I would like you to add a conclusion right in that section, right at the very end, to just kind of tell us what you've told us, so to speak. It brings the, as it says, the green type here, a conclusion brings your audience's attention back to the key ideas they read in the executive summary and the introduction. So it's redundant. There's a lot of redundancy in business writing, but we want to see it. It's a good thing. And the reason it's redundant is for one thing, it's always want to be on point. For another thing is different people read it, as I said, in different ways. So this is the basic format of the business report. And by the way, when you look at these figures, this green type that's in the margins is really good. The content of that is really good because it will explain not just what you're looking at, but it will also explain the reasons that it's there. Now we're going to go to the reference list, which, whoops, sorry about that jumped. We're going to take a look at the references, just like an academic report. There's the explanation, as it says right here in the center. References list prepared by APA style. There are some basic rules right there. You can read those, familiarize yourself with those, or at least have them handy as you review your paper, because you want to follow the right rules. Including appendices if needed. In this case, the appendices are an evaluation of competitors in the fast casual market, and certified organic farms, which would basically be sources for these restaurants. In your papers, again, your capstone is going to be about your career and how you're going to start your career. And if you looked at it from as a business project, how would you do it? So in your appendices, we're going to see things like the job listing that you find. We might find something from a report. If you're looking for a job as a designer or a marketer or a writer, there might be examples of your work in there. And you're definitely going to want to, because we're talking about looking for a job, we're going to be looking for a cover letter that would go with your resume. When you send your resume, would want to see your resume in there, and would want to see a thank you letter that you would write to the job interviewer after your job interview. So those 4 things are things we definitely want: the job listing, the cover letter, the resume, and the thank you letter. But a lot of students have found ways over the years to add other things, such as examples of their work, additional information about the company or about the industry. It's really kind of up to often determined by the job and by the student's ability to understand the nature of the report. So that's what the appendix is for. If you want to see another one, just go to your textbook. As you go through the textbook, after I think chapter maybe 12 or shortly after that, they get to the appendix, and there's a lot of material in there. It's a textbook, so there's a lot of material. Sometimes somebody will have an appendix which will have an entirely different report that they will have used as kind of to build the foundation for their report. So it can get pretty extensive. Now here's some kind of general information about reports. Talking about audience, your internal report tends to be a little bit more vanilla. Not that you wouldn't use certain elements, but an external report tends to have a little bit more of a design style behind it, because it's going to go out to sometimes stockholders, sometimes customers, sometimes others that aren't working for the company and aren't involved. Whereas this tends to be who, what, when, where. Just give me the facts, Jack. Internal reports, as they say here, don't get too elaborate. External reports, because they're going to a broader audience, they basically do. Here's a good example. Oops, that one went a little too fast. Here's a good example. This is Welch's Global Ingredients Group. As you can tell, they put a lot of effort into the design of this. And here's another one, maybe not quite as fun a product, but that's a good example of a white paper by the Lou Adler Group. And again, you've got some design elements in there. There's something about infographics. It's just a standalone visual display that gives you a picture of the company or the project. And that's really all we have for right now. So thank you, and feel free to take a look at this again, or simply look at the textbook, because Figure 1010 is in the textbook, and it might be easier for you to read that green type, which does a really good job of explaining the project. Thanks.